Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, I rise today to first voice my gratitude to the work our police force does every day, and also, like everyone in this chamber, to voice my absolute commitment to tackling domestic violence in the Northern Territory. We know how acute the domestic violence crisis is. We just heard the horrific figures from the member for Fanny Bay. We know we need to take urgent action to enhance women and children's safety. And so the important question for me around this bill is, will this make women and children safer? So in considering it, I sought advice from many of the specialist services that work directly with victims of domestic and family violence, and I asked them that directly. Will this bill do that? Will it make women and children safer? And their answer was clear. No, they said. If we truly want to protect women, we need better support, proper training for police and adequate resources to help police handle high-risk situations effectively. In fact, they said their concern was that this bill could make women and children less safe. I'll talk a bit more about that as I go. I want to say again that I absolutely support our police. They work incredibly hard, often in high risk and challenging circumstances. They have a critical role in keeping us all safe. They work under incredible pressure and they do not have enough support. But enhancing police powers without thoughtful consideration of the wider consequences doesn't make communities safer. Evidence from jurisdictions across Australia has shown that increasing police powers alone does not reduce crime, and in many cases it leads to over-policing, increased community mistrust and the erosion of civil liberties. And here in the Northern Territory we must be especially cautious. Aboriginal people are already devastatingly overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Expanding police powers risks making Aboriginal communities even more vulnerable to over-policing and harassment. This is why I'll be supporting the amendments that the member for Mulka is proposing today. These amendments reflect the reality on the ground in communities and they act to strengthen this bill. I also say again that like every person in this chamber, I'm absolutely committed to doing whatever we can to keep women and children safe, and I'm absolutely committed to doing what we know will work. When we talk about protecting women and children from domestic, family and sexual violence, we must always take the necessary steps to make sure we do it in ways that are effective, that are evidence-based and in consultation with the people who work on the ground to keep our communities safe. So as I said earlier, when I sought advice from many of the specialist services and asked them that question, these are people who are working, ask that question, will it make women and children safer? I repeat their answers, they've said no. These are people who are working at the front line with women and children who are survivors of domestic, family and sexual violence every day. They said, as I said before, if we want to protect women, we need better support, proper training for police and adequate resources to help them handle high-risk, volatile situations effectively. Expecting police officers to make split-second decisions without the proper support and training will not keep women safe. In fact, it could put them at greater risk. We've heard from experts that the recommendations from the coroner's inquiry into the deaths of 4 Aboriginal women should be central to any reforms made in this chamber, and other members today have made reference to these recommendations. Yesterday we heard from the Minister for, for the Prevention of Domestic Violence that recommendations 7 and 17 were being implemented. What about the other 33 recommendations? It's very important to note that none of the 35 recommendations made by the coroner in that report suggest expanding police powers. We must make sure that any expansion of police powers comes with appropriate safeguards for police and for community members, oversight mechanisms and mechanisms like those proposed by the member for Mulka. Expanding police powers without these measures could worsen disadvantage and take us further away from our commitment to closing the gap and to the Aboriginal Justice Agreement just last week recommitted to by the government in this chamber. As we've also heard members in this chamber talk about, domestic violence is very complex and we need to address it in as many ways as possible. I want to acknowledge the very positive news that the Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence shared yesterday and again today in the chamber, that funding for the co-responder model in Alice Springs is, she said, not only being continued, but has been expanded to the Darwin-Palmerston region and the Katherine region. I was very happy to hear this because that this has started in Katherine, Darwin and Palmerston because people on the ground have been asking me about it. I know the sector is looking forward to hearing more details about how it's going to be implemented. I hope we can get clarity on funding and timelines for the co-responder model, because we need to ensure that our officers have appropriate time and training to be better equipped to handle these situations and to work with the co-responder model. Mr Deputy Speaker, if we truly want to enhance safety for victims and survivors of domestic, family and sexual violence, we must focus on what we know works. This means improving support services, it means providing police with the right training and resources, it means investing in community-led safety initiatives. It also means genuine consultation with Aboriginal communities and people on the ground doing this work, particularly when any legislative changes are proposed. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is the approach that will actually build safer communities, one that's grounded in justice, equity and respect for human rights. Expanding police powers without the necessary safeguards and without the input of those most affected is not the solution. I do not support this bill, but if we are to pass it, I urge the Chamber to support the amendments put forward by the member for Mulka to provide some protection to people in our community. Thank you.